Hey, welcome back to another Friday Tech Workshop. I'm Joseph, a senior developer advocate with Appsmith. And if you're new to these workshops, every Friday at 10 a.m., we're going to have some type of workshop, whether that's live coding, a community show and tell. It could be demoing a new feature or Ask the A-Team, where we'll bring on other team members and go through, do Q&A, or maybe look at questions from Discord. So tune in every Friday at 10 a.m. for something different. Today, what we're going to do is use a custom widget to build an app to request custom widgets. So if you're not familiar with custom widgets, they came out recently, and it's a single widget that can let you build just about any other widget. We already have over 45 widgets in Appsmith, but occasionally there's a request for something that is very specific that not a lot of users need. So this one widget will let you make just about anything. We've got a backlog of some requests in GitHub for different widgets that we haven't been able to build yet. And this app that we're going to build today is going to let us prioritize those and figure out what the community needs. And then either me or somebody else from the team or even people from the community can look at these requests, see which one has the most votes, and then submit your own custom widget to the community portal. So right now we have templates that the community can submit, and we're working towards being able to submit your own custom widgets or building blocks. So it's not just templates. Will also involve packages and the reusability components that are coming. So lots of cool things on the way there. Today, we're just going to make a request form app, basically. But since it's for custom widgets, we're going to throw in a custom widget in this request form. So with that in mind, I wanted to just take a minute to talk about like the backend I'm going to use and why I chose it. We want to be able to upload some screenshots. We want the ability for the user requesting a custom widget to give us more than just text. And if they can show a similar widget or interface from another app, and I wanted some easy way to insert the images and a single backend instead of, Google Sheets plus an S3 bucket or something. So I'm using base row because it allows the file uploads and you don't have to go upload it somewhere else first. With Airtable, you can also upload files, but if you do it through the API, you have to send a URL. You can't just upload the file directly. So with base row, it's similar to Airtable in the structure and the use case and whatnot, but the API will let you just upload the file directly. So I'm using that for the back end today. I'm going to skip past setting up a data source because I've got some other videos out there about that. So check the link in the comments if you're looking to use base row for your data source and want to see how we got set up here to start. So I already got it connected. We're going to jump right into the build. And with that in mind, if you guys have any ideas for custom widgets, let us know. Drop a comment below. You can comment on the video here or in the portal, or feel free to reach out to me on Discord. All right, let's get to building. All right, so before we start building the app, just want to walk through the back end real quick. I've set up just a couple of tables for a request for a custom widget. So like what's the title of the widget and a description, who's requesting it, and then if there's an existing issue, sometimes it's one that's already in GitHub and we're going to build a custom widget to solve that. So you could put the link here if there is one. And then some tags. And this is what I'm going to use for the custom widget. So we're building a form, and we'll use a regular form like widget, but then inside of there, I'm going to try using a custom widget to create this style of tag input. And then we've got a place to put a screenshot for whatever type of custom widget the user is requesting. They might have like another library or like a different app they want to take a screenshot from to show what their end goal is. And the rest of this stuff it won't be in the form. It's like follow-up stuff. So I've got a field that I can set it active, or if it's no longer an open request, if we close it out, then I can filter it out. And then somebody can submit a widget to complete that request. And so the widget submission table here will let somebody upload, a link to their custom widget and which request are they filling here. So I have the one request from the request table is selected. And this particular request I chose because it's actually, there's already a widget for it. And so I've got a record that I can have in the request table and in the table that's showing somebody's completed it. So Balaji, an engineer from our team here, has created this JSON editor, JSON custom widget. And so this takes care of this request. I'm building this data on this app on top of some data here where I've got one good request, one submission, and then votes. So I've got a separate table where people can vote on a request. You might go in there to enter yours and you see the request has already been made, so you can just upvote it. So I've got those three tables that we're going to build on top of. And I have already connected the data source and just set up a single query. So I'm getting back that one row for the request, and we're going to build everything else. I skipped past creating the data source because there's already a couple videos on that for base row. So if you need a hand setting up your base row data source, just check out the link in the description. We have another video on that. And so the UI here, I've got an empty app. The only thing I have is this one query pulling back the one table for requests, and we'll go ahead and start building on top of that. Real quick, I want to show the custom widget that I'm going to use as a tag input, and this is already built as well. This tag input, I just submitted this template to the community library. So this is a form. This whole outer container is a regular form widget. But this one input here is a custom widget with tags. So like REST APIs is in the autocomplete list here and GraphQL. And so you can define the list that you want to pre-populate this as the drop-down values. And this is already built. I'm just going to copy this custom widget and we'll build on top of that. And just like the base row data source thing, I'm using a few existing things that we've already done videos on. So we're just going to jump into the build. And again, check out the link in the description for this template and for the base row data source. So we'll go ahead and get started with the build then. And also real quick, I want to show this library that I'm using here. This is coming from, that's not the one, here we go, JCubic on GitHub. This is a tagger library from JCubic, and just wanted to give them a shout out and thanks for making this open source. It's a really cool library and it's given us a quick, easy way to make this tag input in Appsmith. All right, so I'm going to start out with my blank app here. I've got some data coming back and we'll go ahead and connect this to a table. We could drag in a table widget, but there's this assistive binding here. You can just choose what type of widget you want to connect this data to. And you'll notice that the data coming back, it's an object. It's not an array of records directly. It's an object first. And then there's this results array inside of it. So when you go to connect your data, you have to reference the right part of that. This assistive binding does that for you. It knows that there's data dot results, so it just makes that connection for you. So we don't need to see the IDs here. I'm going to turn those off. And so this would be where you could vote the table here. I think we're going to need a form for submitting a new one, and I'm going to put that in a modal. So what I'm going to do is drag in the button for adding a new one. And then we'll say that the on-click event is to open a modal, show modal. And we don't have a modal yet, so you can make a new one right here and it connects it. So this modal is where we're going to put our form. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of these buttons because we'll have our own buttons from the form. So I'm using a regular form widget instead of a JSON form because we have that one field for the tag inputs. And I'm going to copy both these inputs and the tag here, even the buttons, I think. Just going to copy all of that and put it inside of my form, which is inside of the modal. Get rid of these because I just copied some buttons. All right. So this form is going to be to submit a new request, for a new custom widget. So we'll have the name of it. There was a description. I'm going to change this date picker. We need the description field. What am I doing? I want the input, and then we'll set it to a long text. Okay, so this will be the description. And then this custom widget here is our input for the tags. I think that field is called tags over here. Let me double check. Yeah. So we'll have a custom widget to supply these values and let us pick from that. Now let's start a query to create a new record so that we can connect it to the submit button. And I want to get at least the name and the description and these tags working. We may not add all the fields during this video, but basically I want to at least get a new record created using this custom widget as an input. And then we can go on to like the voting part maybe. So we'll see how much we can get done in an hour here. Okay, let's check out the base row API docs to get the right format for the body here to create a new row. So we're sending a request to the table for requests. And so in this custom widget request table, if we want to create a new row, this is the expected structure here. So the API endpoint is going to be, zoom out a little here so you can see all of it, create row, here it is. After /API, it's database, rows, table, whichever table number, and then this user field names equals true. That's so that you can reference everything by those names that you've given it instead of the ones that are coming from the back end. That's like just a random ID. So this is the right endpoint. Now I need the body. And you can also copy the entire thing here and import the curl request. But I've already got a data source created, and so I want to make the API underneath that data source. So here's the body. This is what we would send if we were doing all of the fields. Paste this in here, and this is just the raw JSON right now. So I can't reference and use JavaScript in here yet. So I'm going to select all of this and just wrap it in double curly braces so that it'll evaluate and I can write, and reference different things inside of this. So, all right. We'll skip the screenshots for now. We are going to get to the file upload here in a little bit. And then votes, tags, that's what we want. So I'll leave out the GitHub issue for now. And we want to send an array of tags from that custom widget. We have a couple inputs that we can connect here, which I should go name those before we reference them, because it's, you're trying to remember which one's input 1 or input 2. So I like to use a prefix, always 3 characters, underscore, and then whatever the purpose or the use case is here. So this is the name. And this helps with autocomplete because you can just start typing the type of widget and then you'll get a list of just your inputs, as long as you're consistent with your prefix. So then we have this custom widget for the tags. And now I can reference those in the query. So the title here is coming from our input name.text. The description has an input. I could go ahead and set this to true automatically as they're created, or just leave it out, and it's then I would have to enable it before it shows up. That's the idea, is just to have a way to filter them out so that the table isn't showing ones that have been completed. So we'll go ahead and leave it active automatically, but it doesn't need to be on the form. We'll just add that value in ourselves. Same thing with the email here. I'm going to reference the Appsmith user and we can get their email. Okay, so the tags. Let's check out the custom widget. I kind of skipped over this because the widget's already built. It's out there. It's in the community library. But just real quick, let's take a look at how it works. So I'm passing in an array, a list of tags that I want in the autocomplete list. And then this custom widget, if you go to the edit source, so there's not much on the HTML. It imports a script and I'm using Tagger, and then there's also some CSS that goes with that. And then just an outer div for the whole widget, one for the label, and input. So not a lot going on there. I added some styling that uses the variables to get the radius and the colors from the Appsmith theme, so it'll change with your app. And so the majority of the code's, the JavaScript, but it's still pretty simple. So you identify the tag, the component or the HTML element that you want to use for your input. And then on ready, when Appsmith is ready, you have this function that creates a new tagger instance. So var tags is, and then tagger is a method that's available because we imported this script here. And its input is the item, which element are we initializing here, and the rest of that's just config. It's not a function or anything. This is just saying here's the setup options, and that's all based on the repo that I showed a minute ago from Tagger. So here I'm passing in the list of tags from the model. So outside of the custom widget editor, there's this place to pass data in and also read it back out. And then when the input is updated here, it's going to save that value back to selected tags. So it's coming in as tags, just the available ones. And when it gets edited, then it gets saved to selected tags. So let's try that out. And if I put a value in there, it's updated the model. And now there's this selected tags property, and it's got both values, but it's a single string. Because it's inside an HTML element. It's just the value of an input, right? So it has to be a string or a number. So let's look back here. And if I go ahead and edit it from this side now, we'll see that the model, this is the default model, just what it gets initialized with, but it's not the live model. So if we go back to the query now, here's an array. We need to replace this with an array coming from that string. So there's custom tags. That's our custom widget. It has a model. And inside of there, there's the tags array that I'm supplying. And then the selected tags is a string, which gets returned. We're going to take that string and split it by commas, and that should give us an array. And so if I look at the evaluated value here, you can see that the tags property, it's getting that string, splitting it, and now we have an array. So I think we got just about everything. We could run this and see if it creates a row. But what I want to do is connect it to the UI. So we've got this submit button, and I want that to first create the record. So create a request. If that's successful, we want to see the results in the table. So we have to get the entire list again. So we'll get requests and one final callback here just to close the modal. And that is modal 1. I haven't named it yet. So now we should be able to create a new request here. See if the tag part works. All right, so we have one request. Got one queued up here. Let's see what happens. Ah, first error. Got 2 errors. So let's check out the logs here. That's it. Okay. And just in case there's nothing in there, I'm going to use optional chaining so this doesn't give me an error. when there's no value. So you can see that there's a single value. There is no comma to split by, and it gives me an array of just the one value. And then if I come back and we'll add another value, and it's splitting that string, and now we have an array with two values. So it's almost ready. I think I could send a request right now, and it would try, but it's going to fail because these are not the right values. I need to pass in the values that are allowed for this one field here in my tag inputs. And I created a couple values just based on the editor. When you're creating a new widget, there's sections here for each type of widget. You know, there's inputs and buttons. And so if you're building a custom widget, what type would it fall under? Just as an example, something to use this tag input. So I think what we're going to need to do is make a new query to get those values. I could hard code it and, you know, copy and paste all the values from the other, you know, just by looking at it from here, but I want them to be dynamic. So if I change it from here, I want the app to be able to read that new drop-down option and make it a new value in the custom widget. So to do that, we can use the fields endpoint. Instead of listing rows, we want to list all the fields. And inside of these fields, let's see, is it this one or this one? Here we are. So this endpoint gives us the definition of the backend and, you know, what are these allowed values. So I think we can copy that request. Where is it? Right here. That's the authentication one. So we want to get the fields. It's API/database/fields, whereas here it's database/rows, right? So same table, but we're going to get the fields. So what I'll do is make another GET request on that same data source. And we'll get the list of tags. Let's see if this is working. So this gives us all the fields. And in one of those is that array of the options that are allowed. Here we are, select options. So it's a multiple select field with select options. And then inside of there is our list of inputs or buttons or whatever. So before I can connect this API and make it dynamic to feed that, we got to drill down to this one field, find that array, map over it, and get just the values. So I'm going to add a new JS object now. And this will be a regular function, not an async. So first we'll just return the getTags.data. And we want to, I'll just return it all directly just so we see what we're starting with. So this is an array, and I want to find the item, the first element in this list where the name equals tags. So dot find, this will return a single object for the first one that matches a condition. We want to look at all of the fields. So a single one would be a field. And for each field, if the field dot name equals tags, we want to return that item. So now it's just a single object instead of the array of fields, but I want to get down to this select options array. Almost there, so now we'll return dot tags. Let's see, that's the object. Type, why am I not seeing the tags field? Let's run this again. Select options. Yeah, that's the next level. Select options, and then map over the array. Okay, now I'm getting just the array. So now that I have the list of fields, rather the list of values allowed for this field, now I can map over this one more time and get just the values. It's getting a little long, so I'm not going to return this just yet. We'll call this tag field. It's actually the options. And then we'll return that array mapped, and we want to take each option and return the option dot value. All right, so now we have an array of the actual values coming straight from the back end. So if I go changing and adding a whole new option here, or rename one, or even change the color, those values are getting sent to Appsmith so we can use it. So now what we'll do is, I want this to run on page load and make sure we always have that list. Actually, that's the function. We also want the query that gets the tags. So we want this to run on page load. And now we can swap out this hard-coded spot, and we'll reference our JSObject1 dot get tags. And then this evaluated value here shows that it's taking the response from the API, filtering it for that one field, then mapping over the options and giving us just the values. So it's still pre-populated with databases, and that's part of the custom widget code. We'll go edit that source. And that's just part of the example that I had copied it from. So the input here, its default value, or when it's first initialized, it had that example in there. I don't want that for this use case. So I think we're about there. This should be able to work and create a record now. So we'll try adding a couple values here. Input, yep. Media, I think, was an option. There we go. And so when I submit, I want this button to first create the record and then get all of the records to fill the table so we can see it, and also close the modal because the table's behind this. So this button we'll do is the on click. Its first action is to create. I've already got the create API created. Then I want to run the get request so I can see the value, and there's this final callback here to close the modal. So let's test this out. And no errors. It closed the modal, and I see the second row right there. Cool. So we're able to add a row. It's got the two text fields. This active thing is auto stamped. The creation time, that's like a field automatically set in base row. And it looks like, let's see, did our tags work? It did. So we should have some tags on this new row here. Oh, I'm on the votes. Yes, it worked. Cool. So we can use a custom widget inside a form and capture those tag values so that it looks like tags in Appsmith, and then send it to base row, to another field that's also displaying like tags. So I think that's good for the submission form. As far as like the regular fields. So next I want to get this screenshot to upload. And so with base row, you can upload files directly through the API. Airtable does not support that. If you want to upload a file, you have to do it through Airtable's website. If you do it through the API, you can only upload a file if you have the URL, which means you've already uploaded it somewhere else first, like S3 or whatever. So what we're going to do is upload the file directly to the files endpoint here. And these are different tables in a workspace. And then the file upload, it's not part of a single table. It's just the whole workspace. Once you get that response, it's going to give you back a name property here. And then you can use that name, put it into a row when you do a create or an update over here. And that one field for the screenshots, you can send it the name, just the name, and it will link up with that file. So that's what we're going to do next. We'll use this file upload endpoint. So it's API/user files and then upload file. And we're going to, let's see, we should add a file picker to here as well. So I'll grab a file picker widget. And this will let us upload our screenshots. All right, I'm going to create another query under the same data source, a post request, and that was /API user fields or user files and then upload file. And then for the body, let's look at the API docs here. So it says multi-part and file. So we're going to set this to multi-part. The key is file, and it is a file, right? We're sending, you could send text or whatever data format here. We're going to send an actual file with the key of file. And then we want to reference the file picker here, the files array, and we're only going to upload one, so it would be the first element there in the array. And that's just about it. I think this file picker needs to be set to binary based on base rows API. It just depends on where you're sending it, but for this particular one, you want to use multi-part form, a file sent with that key of file and as binary. So let's see. Once we attach a file here, we need it to be uploaded to base row, get back that name and the URL so that we can attach it to Airtable. And we just need to have the URL ready so that we can add it to the form when we submit. So this file picker is going to do its own upload and get the result, and then we'll use that value in this API when we submit the whole thing. So let's go look at the file here. I need to name this. So if we upload a file, we should be able to reference that link here when we go to create. Sorry, we're creating a record. Here we go. And so right here is the other field we want to add. Can't remember if that was plural. Yes. So screenshots, it's looking for an array with an object that has a name property, and then the value of that name is going to come from the upload file. I have not ran this yet, so there is no .data. But inside of there, there's going to be a name. So let's go ahead and run it so we can get that value and have something extra to bind right here. Because it doesn't know what's going to be inside data yet. So do test 3, add some tags. And I'll attach a file. All right, so once this gets uploaded, I want the action of uploading the file right here to run the API and get that URL for us. So on the file picker, I'm going to set the on file selected to just to upload the file. We don't want to take the name and add it to the row yet. We just want to kind of have that value on deck and ready to use it. So I need to clear out that file I just added because there was no trigger yet. Let me start over, and this should upload the image now. Just the file itself, but not the whole row. Oh, so it failed, but it did attempt there. So let's check out the query, upload file. All right, and now it works. Okay, maybe the file wasn't being read that first time because I refreshed. I don't know. So it uploaded. That's what I was expecting. It just didn't do it the first time. There it is, the name. So there's like lots of different URLs that come back. Here's the thumbnail, and then that's an object. But what we want is the name here, and to save that back to a row. So that's on the create request. Go back to the body, screenshots, and so after upload file runs, there's a .data.name. And we're going to send an object with a name property in an array. You could send more than one, but we're just going to do the one. So it's just about there. Let's see. When you upload a file, when you insert it into the file picker, that's going to get the name. It'll upload it and get that value back so it's ready for us. And then here, the submit, I think I've already got that linked and working. So yeah, we're ready to test it out. Let me refresh. All right, so let's go ahead and try test 4 maybe. I don't know where we're at. So this time we will see if the file upload works. It should upload the file to Airtable and get that link right away. And so you'll see that loading. That worked. And so now can we create a row with this? Okay, no error. And there it is. So we got our file to upload. It created a new row. We can use the tag input. So pretty much got everything working that I wanted here on the form side. Got like another text field or two I could add, but I think I want to go on to the voting part now and like submitting a widget. So got only about 10-15 minutes to go here, so we'll see how far we can get. Let's work on voting. So I made a separate table for votes because I don't want somebody to be able to vote more than once or delete somebody else's vote. You know, they should be able to remove their vote, but not somebody else's. And I thought about just having a column for vote, just a number, and then you click a button and it increases that number, but then there's no way to track who added it, you know? So we've got a separate votes table, and it's just the time it came in, which request is this vote for, and who submitted it, so that I can only allow you to edit your own. So first we'll do a query to get all the votes. And we want to be able to have a button here that lets you vote on something, but only if you haven't voted on it yet. So I'm going to add the button. We'll add a new column to the table. Call it upvote. I'm going to make it an icon button. We don't have the query yet, but I want to put this where I can see it. So I'm dragging this button to the top here, or to the left on the table. Okay, and when we click this button, it should take the row that we're on and our email and create a new vote. So let's go to the new query. This will also be a post request to create a new record. So we'll go to the vote table here. And if we wanted to create a row in this table, then it's this endpoint. Post request. Okay, so we'll copy this from the docs here and into the body. So it's a request. It's an array, but we're only going to have one. And then the one value that we're sending here is going to be the selected row from the table. So I can go to, oh, I got to wrap all this in double curly braces so that I can reference the widgets. And then right here, we'll do table1.selected row, actually triggered row, because they're clicking a button and that row might not even be selected. So triggered row.id, that's the request that they're wanting to upvote. And then we'll get their email. And that should be it. That will create an upvote. We also want to, oh, this should be a post. And then we want to get all of the votes. So I'm going to copy this API. And we'll make this one get votes. I can take out the body because I copied that from a post. So now we have an API to get the list of votes and one to create a new vote. So next, let's make that button actually create a vote and then get all the votes again so we can see it. Also want a column here that where you can see the number of votes. And there is this relationship column from base row. So it's an array of objects representing each vote. We just want to see that as a number. Might just be able to get the length here. Yeah, that works. And we'll say that's a number. So now on this button, back out of that column and go to the upvote button here. I'm going to make the onClick run our new create vote query, and on success, get votes. I don't even know if I need to get the votes or even need a separate API for it. I need to get this data again because it has the relationship in it. And I'm counting it right here. So after I add a vote, I want to get requests again. That should work. Okay, this one has one vote. I'll vote on this one. Cool, that works, but it is going to let me do it again. And I don't want people to be able to vote on the same one twice. So the next thing is I have to disable this button under certain conditions if that person has already voted on that particular request. So let's work on the disabled state here. We'll make this JS, and I got a feeling this will end up being too much JS to put right here, but I want to do at least the first condition and see how much we can do here. So we're going to look at the current row for each one of these buttons. Is the current row ID equal to, and then we want to see if it's like, if any of the votes have this ID. And we'll disable it if it finds a match. So actually, I think I want to start with the votes, and then we'll put this inside of a find or a map. We have get votes data. Inside of there, we'll look at the results array. And then let's see if we can find a vote where the vote dot which request it goes with, which is an array. So if the first request, because there should only be one, if its ID equals the current row dot ID, that would be the condition. So if it finds something here, I want the button to be disabled. This is returning an object instead of true or false. But if it does return an object, I can negate it and turn something that's true into false, and then negate it one more time, and now it's actually true or false. So since there's a vote for this one, it's disabled. That one should be disabled too. Why is it not doing both? So if it looks through and finds a request where the first one's ID is equal to the current row ID, that looks right. The other condition would be that the request 0.user or email or something is going to be yours. Request, it's just email. So the other condition here is, and the vote.request first element, no, vote.email equals, and then we'll say the appsmith.user.email. All right. So if it finds any object in the whole list of votes, where the vote request that it goes to is the one that we're on here, then if that's true and it's your email, then that button should be disabled. I could make it a toggle button so that it like unvotes maybe, but that would get kind of complicated. So I think I'll just have a separate button to delete your votes. So this is like a list of the requests, and it is showing how many votes it has, and it's not letting me vote on that one. Why is it still letting me do this one? That one should be disabled too. Let's look at the back end. Getting rid of this test junk. Okay, so let's refresh that and try one from the start here. So this already has a vote. There it is. It took a second and then it showed disabled. I think maybe the query to get new votes just hadn't ran. That's what it is. So once I do a vote, I do have to run that query so it can look that find my condition that I just added to loop through and decide if this is disabled. It has to be up to date with all the votes, which means right here when I do the upvote, I need to get the requests and get the votes. So I'll have one more callback here to get votes.run. That should work. So now let's add a new request, and then I'll vote on it, and I should only get to vote once. Okay, let's see what happens. Okay, it added the new row, got the image working. So now I can vote on this new one. Yes, and now it's disabled. So we're about out of time. I'm gonna end up adding a button to delete your own vote. Maybe like some more work on the UI and whatnot, but I think we got everything working that functional wise. You can create a row, you can upload a file, and the tags are working. So that was the main thing I wanted to work on today. One more time, wanted to give a shout out to Jay Cubic on GitHub for making this tagger input library that I used. It's really cool to be able to add this feature to our apps and make it in an easy way that people can just copy this custom widget. So thanks again for making that open source. Thanks for joining the workshop today, and look forward to seeing you next week. Let us know what you're interested in for the next workshop. Feel free to comment below or reach out on Discord and just give us some ideas for the next event. It could be a community show and tell or a Q&A with the team. So kind of an open mix of different topics for these workshops, but every Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern, we'll have something. So we will see you next week. Thanks again, and don't forget to subscribe.